All right. Hey, everybody. I am Matt Hill. I'm with Knight Energy Services. And who's this?
And Jeremiah Smith, Mido Resources.
We have, officially, Mido Resources.
Yeah,
All
no
right,
longer Trace.
We're going to get into that here in a second. But we have our guest today for our Talking Energy show. We moved over here for our new building with Trace Management. So, hey, please introduce yourself, Bill.
I'm Bill Shanahan with Energy Rogue.
Energy Rogue. All right. And then our very special guest all the way up here from Fort Worth, America. Colby, tell everybody about yourself.
Hey, I'm Colby Tiffee. I'm with Presidio Petroleum, the Vice President of Commercial Optimization. What that means to most folks is energy marketing oil, gas, NGLs, and just all the products that come out of the ground that Presidio produces.
Well, thank you for being on the Talking Energy show. We find you guys fascinating what you do. I got to see Colby today talk at the Oilfield Connections meeting today. Colby Woodruff was the leader of that and bringing him in here, so we got lucky to grab him up here to our studio today. Tell us about Presidio.
Yeah, you guys are like a big old juggernaut that happened overnight. Just started gobbling up everything.
You know, I think that the best success stories in the industry are like that. I mean, sometimes you get a lot of people who have a background that they have all added value for different companies through the years, not as an equity owner, and that's what Presidio has. Presidio has people who are the partners, the equity owners of other that have backgrounds that have just added so much value for somebody else, and now they're doing it on their own.
Good.
And they brought me in December of 2019 to run the marketing group, and it's just been a huge success story. We purchased assets from Mid-States in 2018, Apache in 2019. In the height of COVID, we purchased assets from Templar.
Boy, what a deal you got there, man.
So we worked so darn hard on that, and Presidio was built to work from home, work from anywhere. Really a technology company at its core. We're bringing the bean bags in. We got the ping pong and the darts and backpacks, and the culture that we think going forward is going to be needed to really take this industry into the next level. So just really excited about Presidio. Presidio, if you don't know, is in the Western Anadarko Basin. So think Elk City into Amarillo, north to Perryton, and then that's where the heart of the production is, and just where the company's growing today. We're looking forward to expanding out in the Mid-Con, and there's going to be some things that are going to come out for Presidio in the next week or so that are really exciting.
So I've had some friends that work for Presidio, and you're chiefly just buying production. So you've got a bunch of stuff with Templar, a lot of drill sites if you want. And what are you guys going to do with that? Yeah,
the story of Presidio is that we have a sponsor, Morgan Stanley Energy Services. They're fantastic sponsors, and they're equity owners as well. And we've had a story that's been replicated recently quite a bit, where we're buying PDP production over time that's just going to take it to the from cradle to grave. So we haven't been really focused on drilling. We think economics matter, and not just economics for a year or two where prices are cyclical in this industry. So we haven't been really focused on drilling. What we've been focused on is economics, operating these wells in the most efficient way possible in order to maximize the life of these wells. So many times the inefficient operations of these wells lead to the premature death, and so what we've done is we've, as much as we possibly can, automated these wells, and we really want to be able to use the technology that's available, and if it's not available, create it on our own in order to extend the life of these wells, enhance production, lower the op cost, do the things that we think make sense, which is to make money. It's for too long, and Bill knows this. We lived in the world of production, of just increasing production. At what cost?
Choke it, just open it up, don't choke it back, and you really kill your longevity of your reserves by doing that.
We have the lowest op cost in the world in some of these basins. We shouldn't be concerned whether or not, if we're going to lower production across the U.S., we're going to give up market share. We need to focus on efficient operations of the existing wells, and I think that I said this earlier in the talk today, that I think if we focused on economics and really pay attention to the fact that we're spending millions of dollars to drill holes in the ground, and they need to provide a economic return. And if we think about that instead of just growing production, we'll be better off as an industry.
So Colby,
thanks for looking at the numbers, but are we?
So are you guys a flipper?
We're not a flipper. I think flippers get a bad name too, because a lot of times flippers come in and they do some of the things I've talked about, and they want to just build and flip, or they want to lower cost at all costs, and then they're going to sell into a higher price environment. We're willing to, we think there are some natural synergies to be able to grab other assets and do this same thing over and over again and hold on to these wells So
Well, I think the other thing people don't realize is how much oil is still left in these reservoirs.
Oh yeah.
You know, and every 15 years there's a new technology that allows to get more and more. But one of the things I learned when I was doing some CO2 for a company years ago was that, you know, the first pass through, you're only getting about 15% of the reservoir.
Do you think you're getting that much?
As an average, probably. I think it's probably even a little bit more with the horizontal drilling.
Well, you know, because we've had Robert Rother, when he
Yeah.
came in, he said single digits. He was thinking it's really single digits on your recovery factor.
Well, I think it'll be 11 to 15, so I'm giving them a lot of, but even with secondary recovery, you call it water floods or whatever you're using, you're only getting about another 10. So once all said and done, 75% or 80% of the oil is still left in there that people don't want to mess with, so to speak, strippers, because they can be very costly, but they just go forever and ever. I mean, at my desk right now, I have a little bottle of oil from the Wheeler number 1 in Drumright. It's still producing today. It was drilled in 1911.
Man, that's
Yeah.
So
incredible.
you won't find any 100-year economics on a well. You know, it just doesn't exist.
Right.
So I think and it's been interesting to watch Presidio because, I mean, Colby, give us some perspective. I mean, when you started there, how many wells did you have and how many wells do you guys have now?
Yeah, so a little bit of an overnight success, like I mentioned. I think that we acquired 400 wells from 0 to 400 from mid-states, almost 1,600 operated wells from Apache, and then another 1,200 from Templar.
Yeah.
We're up to about 3,200 wells. But it was just, what you mentioned, some of these wells have just been mistreated. I mean, they were drilled, they spent millions of dollars, and they just been, they need some love. And these large companies come in and they drill these wells, and they just kind of forget about economics. They focus on production. And I think that it still matters that people make money. I think it still, matters. And if it doesn't make economic sense, then you shut some of these wells in. And we saw that. We really did when we acquired Apache, especially those assets out there, that there were a lot of wells that were they probably should have been brought back to production, or they just need a little love.
Yep.
And that takes time. And flipping, if there is a flip, you got to do a lot of work. I mean, this block and tackling thing, this PDP strategy, if you will, is not very sexy.
No.
We went through a period of time in our industry where we're drilling our brains out. I mean, I asked this question earlier today in the talk today with the OCI folks is, how many people thought 13.5 million barrels a day at the time was sustainable? How many people thought we're going to continue to pour in $500 billion of capital a year to drill our brains out? It's never happened before in this industry. It just was we were bound to fail.
Service companies cross our fingers. They're like, yeah, keep it going.
And we wanted to as well. I think we wanted to all
Sure.
have this, massive success that translated into, incredible wealth for the country. And to some it did, and some it didn't. And that's the problem with the industry. I mean, this industry is full of greed and grace, and you really have to look for. You're going to find both if you look for it. But I think that I prefer to do the grace as opposed to the greed.
Amen.
It really makes a difference in who you work with. I mean, Bill and I worked together for 15 years, and I think that more than anything, I just showed up. My motivation was to work with people like Bill, and that kept me going. I mean, the idea that we're going to just make this well or this project work or that project work wasn't really something that I really got I was keen on. It was just, I want to hear what the other folks, their energy, their ideas about, how we run our business. And that's what motivates me.
Colby and I really enjoyed working together, but it never was always a kumbaya moment. Our biggest conversation style is debate.
Yeah.
And so, but at the end of the day, when we all had decided the way to go, we were all on the team.
That's good. That's hard to get. I think debate is powerful, and I really enjoy it. Like good discussion where you're hearing all the points, but it's once that finishes up, saying, okay, we made a decision. It may not have been mine. We need to move forward. That's hard for me. I can tell you.
Yeah,
When it's,
we
when we're on
worked
sideline.
for a guy by the name of Mark Cahill, and that's how he formed a group that if you ever came to any of our meetings, you would think these people don't like one another, or something like that. But when it was all said and done, that team was able to do, gosh, Colby, what do you say, over $1 billion worth of business for the company.
There's no question.
So I want to get into several things Colby brought up in his little model.
The only debate we haven't settled, though, is who's beauty and who's the beast. That's all I want to know. We haven't decided.
Who's grace and who's green?
That's right.
Unfortunately, it's not up for us to decide.
Can Jeremiah and I chime in on that?
Hey, I'm a big fan of Gordon Gekko. Is Greed good? I don't know if you guys watched that movie, Wall Street. Yeah. I always go back to that. And I question, is greed good? Greed is what motivates us to drill more. But to an extent, you do need that grace to say, okay, let's look sustainable instead of flipping this as quick as possible, destroying the reservoir life of it. You know,
I don't even know if you call it greed. I mean, there's people around the globe, as you mentioned earlier today, that man, tell us that story. There's somebody out there that lives on, for their entire year, they live on less than that refrigerator in my house uses. That's
so
bananas.
I encourage everybody to follow Robert Bryce on LinkedIn. Robert is a fantastic person who, in the details about energy density, he has a new movie out called Juice, and he travels all across the world, really showing how electricity has changed people's lives. And one of the things that he said in that movie that really stuck out to me is that 3 billion people across the globe live on less electricity per month than your refrigerator at home.
That is astonishing.
That's like 46% of the population.
Yeah.
Of the world.
If there's 8 billion people,
I thought there were 7 billion.
There you go.
Yeah, there's like
Probably is.
7.2 billion.
Yep.
Like that.
And that's not greed. If they're hungry for more energy, cheap energy, like you talked about today, which we all have, we're blessed by here in America. No one,
Especially Oklahoma.
we are incredibly fortunate for where we're born. And those people across the globe, they are not greedy. They are hungry for energy to make their lives better.
To change their lives. And he featured one lady who, it also stood out to me that she was able to, and she was a real smart person. She just had never gone to school. So she went to school. Her daughter went to school because they had electricity. And what her daughter would say was that, and it was accentuated the difference between not having electricity and having electricity when her daughter was studying one night. She said that the electricity went off and she couldn't see. It was so pitch black dark, and she couldn't see the material at night to study for the test the next day, and that by candlelight it was hard to decipher what was actually going on. But that was the key to her daughter getting an education. The lady was sharing the story, probably was smart and had the abilities just as much as her daughter, but she didn't have electricity in order to be able to.
Where was she from?
It's in Africa.
Yeah.
She traveled over to Africa, and
So there's a lot of reserves over there, right, in certain areas, but you also have an abundance of sunlight. It seems like solar would be a good choice, especially for simplistic things like lights, you know,
right.
and battery technology and stuff like that.
so that was a good lead into my my discussion about energy as U.S. as an exporter, a net exporter. That our consumption is, and crude is 19 million barrels a day. That we produce 11.2 today, which, by the way, was a year ago we were producing 11.2. So we're back to where we were before, and
should we be though?
But I think we shouldn't be producing at the expense of, bad well after bad well after bad well that runs companies in the ground, because that deteriorates our us as an industry, perception. And what's happened is traditional capitals just said no more. We're not gonna invest in these multi-million-dollar. I mean, you guys know. This is a capital-intense business, and the most capital-intense business, and a lot of investors are saying, I'm just not willing to do it anymore. And traditional capital is on the fritz. It's gonna lead to a muted comeback.
Okay.
We're going to come back, and the demand's is still going to be there. I wouldn't listen to the folks who say the death of the energy industry is coming. 2050 net carbon zero nonsense.
And just by the way, I've been through 4 deaths of the industry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right.
Do you not see a transition happening though? Like you guys are in WAB or West Anadarko Basin for a reason, and it's not for oil recovery. I assume it's for gas. So do you guys believe more in gas than oil?
I think that if you look at the supply and demand, that most folks are more bullish long-term natural gas, and it's for those reasons I talked about. The demand for electricity is going to be there no matter what. But even prior to COVID, demand for crude oil and natural gas were increasing and rising. It's just we've all been at home reading all the papers, writing off this industry. Well, the industry is back to where it was before. I saw yesterday that 1.5 million barrels of the demand for jet fuel yesterday was 1.5 million barrels. That's what it was in February of 2020. So we're going to get back to where we were before as far as demand, and it's going to continue to grow. Now, does it grow in the United States? Maybe not.
Because we have so much exports too, like you said earlier today.
Right. Well, so we're going to get back to doing our thing, producing more oil and gas. But what's going to change is the markets. The markets are going to change from domestic to foreign.
Do you think so? Really, where are we going to be exporting? Mexico's got quite. Where are we sending it?
Mexico, 3 years ago we weren't exporting anything LNG wise. Today we're exporting 14% of U.S. production.
Where's it going?
So a third of it's going to Mexico. Quite a bit's going to Europe. South Korea is a large consumer, and Japan, including in India. But India's been muted a little bit lately because of COVID restrictions and whatnot.
India needs. This is cleaner. Right now they're burning tires and wood.
Have you ever traveled to India?
No,
I've been there twice.
Okay.
And it will amaze you. I mean, it will. We don't know what poverty's like. And for them to raise their people out of poverty and realizing they're, what, now 1.2 billion people compared to the U.S. at 331 million. And they're on probably 1/3 of the landmass. And so when you see what they're trying to do, they're going to do their best to reduce their emissions. But they need power. They need power, and the power is more important than the emissions to them right now.
Yeah, they're an emerging economy, and that actually scares me more than anything. Like the United States is pretty well developed, but we're not that good at emissions from the wellhead in general. So to think India cares it all at this point,
Well,
I'd be surprised.
the good news, they'll be able to skip some of the technologies that we wore out.
Right.
And so that's a good thing. It's sort of like there are people. I was way out in the sticks of India, and very very seldom any electricity or anything like that, and we'll walk alone. Here's this guy herding sheep talking on his cell phone. And I'm going, well, they never had to worry about wires.
Right.
Yeah, okay. No, that's a good point. That's a really nice
So
analogy.
they just jumped that technology altogether. Now, you still need wires to do cellular, but they just need wires to towers.
Bill, what were you doing in India twice?
I was doing some mission work among Muslims. My timing was not always great. I mean, I went on the first anniversary of 9/11. That was really an interesting conversations. And then the next time I went was the first week of the Iraqi War. So,
Oh gosh. Yeah. So yeah, you weren't there for gas.
well, the good deal was that we had a lot to talk about.
Sure.
You didn't go scout any fields over there to see if we can.
No, I did not. But it's good to remember that even though they're a developing nation, they really have smart people there,
Oh yeah. But
and they work for a lot less than our people do.
Yeah.
well, it's very corrupt though. There's an enormous divide between those that have and those that don't, and it's a very small percentage that have.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's a very small.
Well,
they've got
I
a
thought the
lot
left
of-
argued that here in the United States.
It's much worse there by far.
Let's just say it's very well defined.
Yeah, it's a class system, right?
Well, they don't really call it that, but it's interesting that when I was over there, they taught me to see where people lived, where they were in that situation, by how they dressed.
Okay.
And it was fascinating to be able to do that. It was sort of the.
Did you stay like in the local villages in the huts?
Yes. Well, not in the huts. We stayed in. I was telling somebody we stayed in a hotel out there, and I mean, I paid extra to get the air conditioning. So instead of charging me $6, they charged me $8.
Wimp.
So, and the name of the hotel was the White House, and I go, the White House? I said, yeah, because I said I was in the Lincoln bedroom. He says, really? I says, yeah, because it was Lincoln's administration last time they did anything to it.
Oh, that's fine. Hey, Bill, while everybody's listening, tell us about Energy Rogue, by the way. Since you're here, I want you to promote your business.
All right. Well, Energy Rogue is actually sort of more of a passion as much as anything. Is that over the decades that I've been involved in this industry, and especially in the last times, both in marketing and operations, I'm amazed at how many people in the oil business who are running businesses know nothing about how the price is arrived at.
Yeah, no, that's something I've got a list of questions we haven't even broken into that I don't want to get to it because I don't understand it and I have a lot of producing wells. So
And so what we've done with Energy Rogue, and we call it Energy Rogue because basically we're not going to try to do things like everybody else has. I mean, if you want to get a good pricing service and stuff like that, and everybody do that, it only costs you about $3,000 a month or $1,500 a month. And so what we do is we pull all of that together, and we pull from some of the same sources that everybody gets, and we aggregate them all in one spot, and we will send you a daily email of where the energy is at, and we will send you, and you can access our website and see how we arrive at all of our stuff, whether we're bullish or bearish,
Okay.
and what points us that way. Because a lot of times people have never heard of something called MACD. Okay, well MACD is all it is the convergence divergence line of pricing against the trend, and when they come close together, you have high volatility. Well, which means that price is going to jump one way or the other. You don't, it's not. People always say, "Can you predict oil price?" I said, "Sure. Oil price is going to be 86.39."
someday.
They go, "When?" I said, "Now that's the question."
So, Bill, how'd you do in February?
Yeah.
How'd you do in February?
We actually did pretty good. We didn't really roll out. We're still running our trial system at that point. We rolled out on Star Wars Day, May 4th.
Yeah.
And so, but we have called the ups and downs pretty close based on the technicals and some of the fundamentals. And so, I mean, we called $75 oil 10 days before it got there.
Oh, is it already at 65 and trending up though?
It was starting to trend up, but it was, I think at the time it was 63 something.
Where's it going then?
Yeah, Colby, you said that today. Like, I want to hear why you think that. Where's oil going to be at? You two are way off on this, and I like it.
I want to hedge off his opinion. What's your
Yeah. I'm gonna hedge in general. Tell
So
me
Colby and I have a bet. So gosh, how long have we done this now? For about 8 years. Every now and then we call another. Well, where you think it's going?
I think I'm netting the good with you though, over the long term. Someday we're going to pay off all this.
So there's a lot of resistance right now to the oil, and some of it's technical, some of it's fundamental.
What is the difference? Please explain that first.
So technical is that you're just following what the electronic traders do.
Oh, yeah.
Realize the guys who are trading on WTI, very few of them own any commodity. They're just doing trading.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? So basically the only skin they have in the game is what they have on the financial. Okay? But fundamentals are supply, demand, when you look at what the refineries are using versus, what we're producing. And so whenever you show that our production is lower than what the refinery inputs like they are right now, so they either have to pull from inventory or they have to pull from imports. And right now imports are sort of picking up most of the slack. Like I think it was last week we were talking that the imports went from 0.6 million barrels a day to 2.8 million barrels a day.
Wow.
And so, part of that is that when you see imports, you have to understand whether it's actually crude oil or whether it's petroleum products. Because we import a lot of unleaded gasoline, and we export a lot of diesel.
And propane.
And we export right now 82% of propane.
Really?
A third of which is going to Mexico.
Wow.
They've been doing Pemex and all them. They've been putting in a lot of infrastructure. They're going to start doing some storage wells and stuff, right? So I would assume Pemex is not going to be energy independent, but they are going to start using their own supply before long. They are investing heavily in that.
Well, the Mexican government has really been progressive in importing petroleum products, pipelines, not so much downstream or down the hole and drilling wells, but when we're talking about exporting 11.5 BCF a day, 14% of the production in the United States, a third of that's going to Mexico, mostly as a result of the revised NAFTA deal that President Trump did in 2018, and really brought a lot of manufacturing to North America, primarily Mexico, and the growth will come in Canada, but right now the COVID has that muted a little bit, but the growth in Mexico has been. I mean, folks coming across the border, I say this all the time, I don't know why they're coming across the border. They can go get a job right now in some of these manufacturing
but what are they
moving
paying
from China.
What are they paying them? And I know it's going to be a different number there, but they're paying them squalor wages. Realistic. That's why manufacturing is there, not here. Yeah, it's so much cheaper.
No question, but it's not in China anymore.
They're bringing it here,
and it's not in India. It's in Mexico.
Yeah,
and
Chinese companies are moving their operations to Mexico and using their labor
to be closer to the market.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
incredible.
China's getting pretty hostile too. So.
Well, the other thing is that your transportation costs are going up, and so
They are.
Why pay to ship it when you can rail it from Mexico?
Sure. So let's you guys said you have a bet. I don't think we ever had an answer.
Okay, so mine is that
Where's it
our
going?
bet is that I said it'll touch 60 before it goes back up, and Colby says we're going straight to 85.
Wait, so we're over 60? Oh, you think it's going to fall a bit more?
Yeah.
Oh man. So where are we at today? Is it over 70?
72?
Yep.
72.
Yeah, I think 72.
So we're still kind of hovering in the middle.
I don't even care about. What about gas?
Yeah,
That's
Gas
certainly us
is
here.
different. That's a real different deal. I think we're both very bullish on gas.
I am too,
Wait, we're
but
at $4 an M right now.
do you think we can get to 5 and stay there?
No way.
And win?
Tell me why. Yeah. It's
Anyway,
well,
well, there's always resistance because when you start doing this, because what people will do is that they start comparing it to something else. All right, but the fuel are pretty much gone.
what? I'm sorry?
Fuel
From coal.
used to from coal to gas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so many of the coal plants are being shut down that you really can't switch that. In fact, as you'll find that more and more we're exporting coal out of the U.S.
Yeah.
So a lot of it now is moving to renewables. And one of the little things you have to watch about renewables, when everybody reports, they always report capacity and not utilization.
Yeah.
So they say, well, 14% of the U.S. electricity can be wind, but we're only using 4%.
Is it that high for
Yeah,
wind?
It's that high.
It is that
Certain
high.
days it's that high.
Well,
Certain days. That is the
But-
key
right?
to it, right? Yeah.
When the wind blows.
but if you've
Silly
ever been
technology.
around a wind farm, it's not the cleanest thing in the world.
All the dead birds.
Well, believe it or not, they have an exemption.
Yeah.
for migratory
Sure.
birds.
Wait, so we have to make enormous changes for beetles and everything else, and they get exemptions from. There's so much craziness to this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to get in a little tangent and then come back. But it all feeds into this. So it's so crazy. You said we're exporting the coal, right? And that's a green initiative. In the States, we're going to say we're not burning the coal.
Right.
We're just moving it, and it appeases
The
green
coal
peace.
is still getting burned. It's just somewhere else.
It's just,
Not
we're
in our
not
backyard.
really doing anything. Yeah,
But
we're
it's
just
at least it's
exporting
going
it.
to countries that don't have the EPA standards we do.
At least. I don't know that that's good news or bad news. Sure, the United States is still making money. We're just exporting instead of doing it here. It's still getting to the atmosphere. And the other part why I bring that up is I just bought an eco diesel, a Ram 1500, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And they got in trouble in 2018 with Volkswagen for their emissions scandal. They were cheating they were gaming the system in California, namely for when they'd have to go in for their smog test, and they had a program that would run.
A little software glitch.
Yeah. So they fixed that, right? So they got in trouble. They got their hands slapped, and the government said fix it. So they did a Band-Aid with a software upgrade that changes how the vehicle runs. So now my fuel economy is dropped by roughly 5-10%. And that makes it cleaner, but I have to burn more fuel.
You have to burn fuel.
Yeah, so you're emitting more. This is just a shell game. It's very frustrating.
All numbers always have been, man. You can put data in however you want and make any number look how you want it to.
You can talk about net carbon zero 2050 all day long, but
I think our biggest responsibility as an industry is always just one thing: delivering cheap, affordable energy to populations that want it.
right, to improve
Which is
people's
me.
lives.
Improve people's
Right.
lives.
In the best way
You could
possible.
argue how much does it improve their lives if the cancer is more prone if you're killing the ozone layer?
We've done that study, and that the
not
pros
happening.
way
Who did
far,
that study?
the pros far outweigh the cons in terms
the
of
short term.
all of the things that have improved people's life across the world. There are things that we're always going to be having to deal with cancer, focused living in urban areas around refineries and things like that. But by and large, we see people who are living longer, people who are living better lives, and that's the way that the in the industry has been developed. Like Matt said, on cheap energy and American ingenuity to make people more prosperous, and that's the story of the United States. And today we try to spread that through our industry across the world. And if you haven't seen it, there's a fantastic video about making fun of the North Face and how they promote that they're not going to do business with energy industry companies.
Right.
And so a great story of taking their apparel and saying what percentage of this is made out of petroleum products. And that's just one example.
Is that Liberty Frac?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Liberty Frac.
Thank you, Liberty.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. It was great. Yeah. How?
He's
So one of the
very
guys-
progressive.
So one of the guys to follow on this is a guy by the name of Alex Epstein.
Oh, Alex is.
He wrote a book called The
we're
Moral
huge
Case for
fans.
Fossil Fuels. And he talks about, are we worried about the planet or are we worried about humans flourishing?
Humans flourishing.
Yeah, we know that the life on Earth
Just gotta note that
flourished
on
when CO2 levels were 5 times what they are today. Life on Earth flourished, and that's the if we're going to focus on more the temperatures in the Earth rising by 1.5 degrees Celsius over people living another 20 years. 30 years, we're not focusing on the right thing.
Well,
We need to be
Colby, you're
focusing
being
on too
disingenuous
much
in that because that's 1.5 degrees by 2050, but that doesn't talk about 2100, right? So it's 1.5 degrees then, but it exacerbates and gets worse and worse. So let's kind of say that that is by then. That is one point, but it will get worse.
I will take your point on that. I want to ask you this. From 1970 to now, how's it been? Has it gone up? Has it gone down?
What, the CO2 concentrations?
CO2 and more importantly, the other ozone killing.
Well, it's methane. Methane's it's shorter lifespan in the atmosphere, but it holds a lot more heat. It traps more heat.
So in the United
it's harder.
States, it's gone down.
The emissions?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Well, when you do it on a per capita, for sure, but it has gone down. Because, I mean, I was there in the 1970s when you could, cut the air in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And so, but however, the rest of the world, like I said, does not have that same agenda. And so, are we going to take money out of the Americans' pockets?
No.
Yeah, that's called leadership and doing what's right even when
Right.
other people aren't. So I'm not, and don't. I'm an oil and gas guy.
Yeah,
I'm an
I-
advocate, right? But I believe in long-term sustainability
Right.
too.
And sustainability is an interesting term because people use it differently.
Yes.
And so, usually when someone says sustainability, it's okay, define what you're talking about sustainability. Are you talking about the Earth flourishing another 50,000 years? I mean, it's been here for a long time.
It's always going to be here.
It's always.
And so.
Yeah, it might be like Mars though, and a
Yeah.
dry rock.
Or it's going to be super lush with like us surfing and like
Yeah, right.
it's going to be great.
I feel better about warmer temperatures, honestly.
I like it warmer.
You know what I
I
mean?
do not.
I do. I feel like oceans rise and people move. That's
Well,
how I
Florida's
feel like,
gone.
right?
You know, write that
right?
one off.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
I still
But a lot of people.
I don't think the ocean's rising either. I think this is all baloney.
Well,
So how do we get back to how do we find out what the oil price is really going to be? Like you
Yeah.
are saying it's going to be touching 100.
No, let's talk about these darn gas marketers speculating. And
Yeah,
futures
right.
contracts. Yeah, let's talk about some speculation. And because I actually wrote it down, I didn't.
Well, so
I
people,
didn't underline.
people
I
pay
told
him to
about
know.
its cyclical nature, and I want to know why is it cyclical?
I'm always
Why is it so
interested in
cyclical?
people who are asked to do a job and not have an opinion. So I want to be in that world where you're asked to do something, but you're not really accountable, responsible. And people who do what I do and Bill do, they always do. They're marketers, but they really don't have an opinion about where they're going, what's going to happen. The co-founders of Presidio Petroleum want to know what's going to happen to prices like everyone else does, and they want to know that their marketer has an opinion, at least an educated guess as to what the hell's going to happen. And so the way you look at these things are fundamentals, and you really look at historically what's happened. You take all the things that you know to be true, and you use them to forecast the future. What's going to happen is we're heading to $100 in 2021.
Whoa.
And everybody has that. Everybody was talking about $100 a month ago, 2 months ago. I was talking about it in my IMO. I do between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I release my IMO index for the upcoming
What is IMO?
year.
But in my opinion, I guess,
yeah. But I just call it that. And what I had in 2021 for August was $85, but a note that said going to $100.
Where's that note at? I want to see
I'll have
like
somebody
that.
print, or one of the guys who likes to take pictures, hold me accountable for things. He has it, so I'm going to take it.
We'll put
I'm
it
going to
on-
do it as a release this year,
Yep.
a big release on LinkedIn. My IMO index for 2022. I'm going to do that, and everybody can throw tomatoes at it and give me a hard time. People always.
I want the image. No, can we put it with the podcast? So, yeah, I want that.
You're letting this guy off the hook way too easy.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I always ask him, he says, "What's going to go $100?" I say, "Okay, is that a print or is that a close or is that a month in close?"
Yeah.
That is a difference. What if it?
Yeah, somebody always asks me, what's the price of WTI? I'm like, oh, do you care? Are you marketing barrels in Midland?
Yeah,
Why? And they say, oh, well, NYMEX. Well, do you need NYMEX or do you need WTI? Because those aren't the same things. And
Yeah.
talking to energy marketers, of course, you always get two answers until you specifically nail them down to what exactly you need, which is oftentimes the reason why people don't like energy marketers.
Right.
And shout out to my bosses who say every year in my review, well, you didn't suck as bad last year as you sucked. This year. So anyway, but yeah, it's.
We keep talking about oil, but we're all gas men. We're no.
Yeah, I want to just.
We make a little bit of oil, a fair amount of gas, and a lot of water. So let's talk about the fair amount of gas.
I talked about this earlier, where everybody needs to get comfortable with the term associated oil.
Associated oil. Love
Instead of
that.
associated gas.
Yes,
Yeah.
associated oil.
gas. We talked about that for a decade and the last decade, and that was for good reason. I mean, we were drilling like crazy, and we had all kinds of opportunities to grow, and the market share did that, and we went to $13.5 million. Or 13.5 million barrels a day, the highest we've ever produced. And so I think
So
we're
what
heading
would
into
you
an
do?
era of associated oil where.
What were you doing with the gas when they were doing that 13 million barrels?
Yes.
Fencing it.
So that's really what we have to focus on in the new ESG era is our image. The image of flaring everywhere is the image that we have to embrace, own, and say, going forward, that's not who this industry
Good.
is.
Yes.
So,
Mine Bitcoin. Do something.
Yeah.
I hate the flaring.
So,
I hate
yeah.
the flaring. What a waste.
Have you guys started mining Bitcoin on any of your locations yet?
we've gotten those inbound calls. I don't know we're calling anybody back.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
hey, whenever you're ready, we know some guys.
So
Okay.
Kobe's biggest pet peeve is flaring. I mean, we have been in the field many
It's just
times.
money. It's all you see is money burning
It's
away. Like,
money
why is this not
going
going
up.
Yeah, well, it's
somewhere?
inefficient. I hate
Yeah.
inefficiencies, and that is very inefficient.
Marketer's
use.
failure is flaring. That's
Yeah.
a failure of a marketer is the sign of is flaring. So but where gas is going is, so what we've done as a country for our electricity demand is we've become more and more reliant on wind and solar, and all that is done.
Oh, that's great, man.
And this is a
Our prices are
perfect,
through the roof.
and this is perfect storm in February in Texas. The perfect storm happened, and it showed us. It gave us a glimpse of what's to come. So natural gas is pretty static. I mean, we don't see massive fluctuations in pricing, and historically it's been pretty
'Cause OPEC
statically
doesn't
up or
control it.
statically going down. Right.
That's right.
And so what we're going to see is
Presidio
that
does.
the
I
more
hope
and more
so.
we rely on renewables, the more and more erratic natural gas price is going to be, and all that's going to do is continue to lift the floor of natural gas.
We like it. That's why there's always this question.
like it.
Everyone in oil and gas, and well, I shouldn't stereotype everyone, but most people are Republican. They're conservative, right? And they hate when
God bless America.
when a Democrat gets in office. But every time they do, our prices go up. So just like
Yeah.
these other energies that aren't really sustainable at night, or if the wind stops blowing, if it's cloudy or whatever, it's good for us. I embrace all forms of energy.
It's just
because it
it's just
usually
chasing
helps.
something. I wish not one young mind was wasted on wind power and solar power.
But you can't think that our energies, it's been around for a long time. We've
Yeah,
been
it's
using
better.
it. There's, I mean,
better.
come on, to close your mind to say there couldn't be something that's more.
I'm not saying there couldn't be. I'm just saying what we've come up with so far isn't working. Scrap them.
No, you don't scrap them. You got to invest in the technology. See where it goes.
I think we're about capacity on what solar can do and what wind can do.
As,
We know.
as a country, we just need to be about all above.
No,
we need to be all,
right.
and we have to have government quit picking winners and losers.
Amen
And
to
decide
that.
the free market's going to decide what cheap energy consumers want. And I know what consumers want. They want the cheapest cost.
I
energy.
never want to come into my house and not be able to flip on a switch and
Right.
it's not working. Oh, am I freezing to death
Yep.
in Texas
Right.
because I had wind power? Great, terrible idea.
So we're going to get to a point, and we're already there, and we're going to see that in the summer and from here on out, where natural gas swings pretty high. I mean, we saw $1,000 gas here in Oklahoma during the February storm. I call the Valentine's Day massacre of 2021, where we sold $1,000 MCF gas, and that's we're not going to
sell
have
$1,000 gas.
Well, we did pretty good, but we didn't do that good. But what we're going to see is fluctuations. The more we rely on renewables, the more fluctuation in dispatchable gas we're going to have. So there you go.
When you start talking about electricity, you have to look at what the efficiency rate of different power plants are. No matter whether wind, solar, natural gas, coal, they all have an efficiency rating.
What does that mean exactly? Just
That means that how much power do they consume and how much power they put out on a BTU equivalent basis.
Okay.
Okay, so really some of the best are only about 78 or 79%.
And what energy?
So we need more
sources?
power plants too.
And so,
By far.
we will have more power plants because people are not going to stop making cell phones or computers or anything else like that.
No.
So we're going to have more power plants. But when you go through it, solar's at the bottom of the heap.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're probably 25% efficient.
Why is that?
Because when you need the energy, they're not there. And even when you're there, it depends on the efficiency of the panels. Now the panels are going to get more efficient.
Yeah, I've read that they're like 27 to 30%.
Yeah.
It's very inefficient right now.
Yeah.
That's why
Right.
you got to keep letting that progress.
And so you keep going that way. Wind is somewhere in the high 30s for most of the time, but you have to realize that most of the stuff on a wind turbine is not recyclable,
Yeah.
and they have a lifespan of 25 years.
What kind of maintenance with that over the 20,
They're,
25 years?
well, have you ever seen one hit by lightning? That's really interesting. I saw one out here in west of town that was hit by lightning. It just blew the.
That's just God saying exactly how I feel. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what resulted
choice.
was a fire in the turbine. And so, to give you an example, most turbines now are about 3 megawatts per turbine. They're working on 12 megawatts, and they have them, but they're huge.
Right.
They're a 3 megawatt turbine.
Those will fail too.
That 3 megawatt turbine requires somewhere between 40 to 60 acres for wind.
What does that mean? Like the blades
space.
expand that
No,
much, or why did they need that much space?
Because other turbines interfere with their wind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are like North Sea. When you're talking that big, you're going to put them in a
No, this is
offshore-
right out here in western Oklahoma.
Really?
Yeah. So Colby, what about a 360 megawatt power plant powered by gas takes up what, maybe 80 acres?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's a lot of space for it.
Yeah, they'll put a buffer zone around it, but 88.
See, so what does an
So
oil well and a pad take? Just
About 2
tiny,
acres.
There we go. A tiny little patch of perfect energy.
You could put multiple wells on that.
Multiple
2 acres.
wells. That's what we need to be doing.
So when you do that, when you're saying you're getting 3 megawatts for 60 acres, and you want 360 megawatts, so you need 120 times that 60 acres to get the same thing you can get out of 80. So
It's a mess.
is it Jurgen that talks about energy density, or is that Bryce?
Robert Bryce.
Robert Bryce.
Robert
Fantastic.
Bryce. We like this guy.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
he's really good. He's really a neat guy too. I actually had breakfast with him a few years back. But he talks about energy density, and that's how much energy we're getting out of the space we use.
Yeah. So nuclear's
Yeah.
best, oil second, and then
And so there's been a lot of people who when you start looking at power, they look at distributed power. That's where you put the power where people are. That's some of the highest cost electricity. You know, it's like when people put solar panels on homes for electricity. You know, when I looked at that, electricity doesn't really make sense. Hot water makes a lot of sense, but electricity does not, because in order to sell it back to the grid, that little device is about 10 grand.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma, they got really far ahead of this. Mary Fallon was the governor. They passed a law. It's all a gift to the grid. It's very frustrating when they saw the solar coming.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Gift to the grid.
Yeah.
So what about
To the grid.
the extra energy you produce out at your locations? If you turn that into energy through a generator, like, okay, instead of flaring, I'm sending that natural gas over to a generator. The generator's creating power. I'm mining my Bitcoin, but I also have extra power. Can you put that back on the grid? Is that a gift too?
So you made a big assumption there.
Yeah, that you couldn't sell it.
And that's only
That's
electric
one.
in Oklahoma City, by the way. It's not the.
But when you mine Bitcoin, you have to have an internet connection.
Yeah.
But that's mobile now. You can put up a dish. I mean,
can
whatever.
put up one of
You don't
those.
have to have a line out to there
But,
anymore.
but once again, it's not all just free.
No. Well, there's investors. I mean, everybody wants to make money off of this, but
But it's wildly inefficient too, I think.
What?
To
Well-
mine Bitcoin that
but
way.
it's something to do with
Okay.
your natural gas.
Yeah, if you're
And-
Other than just
Why is that inefficient?
I think what we're going to do, because
somebody told me yesterday that if you mine Bitcoin with your gas, so right now gas is a little bit above 4, right?
Yeah.
But if you go use your gas for mining Bitcoin, it's more like 15.
I think they need to get a better marketer and sell the gas.
I mean,
Well, no, you're
down the pipeline.
Colby, but this is the
Yeah.
where most of this comes from is stranded gas, where you don't have a market.
That's what people say, but
What?
I don't believe that.
Well, it's-
Where are we drilling wells where we don't have a market?
Okay, no, Potawatomi County. I've got 2 wells, and
better
we can't get to the wells produce 100 M a day.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lay a pipeline. I can't cost effectively do a pipeline. There's a ton of stranded gas. I've got wells in Wyoming, and those wells, there is nothing around there.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it?
Yeah, we produced at Lynn. We produced up in Wyoming too, and it just not. There's always certain specific small instances that you can pick out. I just think that a lot of times that too much is put into. Well, we're just going to flare, and we're going to drill this $5 million well. We're not going to spend $100,000 to lay a pipeline.
yeah.
Can you believe that?
Well, yeah, but I don't know.
Can you believe that? I mean, what are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's only
That always point to me, because one of my pet peeves is that when we do an AFE, no one ever puts in connection costs.
As if we're planning to fail. We're planning to, as if this
And one thing will tell us is this-
is optional.
Because we don't know if we're going to have a well
And do you
yet.
think I would rather as an industry start writing that into the AFEs versus regulatory coming in and saying, hey guys,
Right.
we've already decided for ourselves we don't want any more flaring. We don't want the government telling us that, because then we're in trouble.
Why would you
Why would we wait
plan
on
to
them?
drill something to capture it and not do that? That's what you're doing. What's going up in the air is what you spent $5
That's
million
capital
in.
efficiency. Like,
Yeah,
if I'm there for the
it is.
oil,
So that's-
I'm not there for the gas.
So I talked about it earlier and a little bit here today. We need to get back to what makes economic sense. And a part of that is that we need to build and construct and drill wells that make economic sense, and that's inclusive of a pipeline to keep us from what. I mean, everybody's gonna if they see that flare, they're gonna say, "See, it's the same old energy industry doing the same old thing." We gotta build in what you said, Matt.
Yeah, but
We gotta
that
build
would
in-
make
I want to do radical
wells.
things though. Like I want built-in, microgrids. I want to go drill a gas well for my neighborhood, and everybody in my neighborhood gets that natural gas off of that well, and then anything left over we can put into the power grid and pump up to the rest of it.
You absolutely have the right to do that today if you're the mineral owner.
Yep.
You absolutely.
Everybody in my neighborhood
the
gets.
Barnett Shell.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they
Yeah.
go pipe directly to houses.
I want
Yeah.
everybody in my neighborhood to be right there. There you go,
We
guys.
drilled some fantastic wells out
Who's
in
we?
the
What
Texas
Presidio?
Panhandle and Lynn, and we put the landowner said, "Hey, we want to use this right out of the ground, right here at the house."
Awesome.
And we did, and it's fine. It's great.
Even better, pipe that to a generator next to their house, and they also have electricity
There
and
you go.
natural gas.
That's it. Yeah.
And part of that is you have to know what the quality of your gas is.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was years ago, lived out in the country on a farm, and I had the farm was tied to, the house was tied to a well. Well, they ran it through a little propane tank because it had liquids in it,
Yeah.
and it would drop out the liquids in the propane tank.
Great.
And that was their treating of the gas,
Worked.
And so it was one of those that the guy says, it works most of the time, but if we get a spot of liquids, it might get exciting.
Yeah. Bill, tell us about the quality of gas. There's different BTUs, British thermal units. Well, how does this work?
Well,
I want to know so much about gas marketing. This is why I want Colby here, because I don't understand it.
Well, Bill's been in this industry since what? Throwing
36?
Throwing
Dinosaurs and targets.
That's right.
Yeah, that was my first job.
Oh my God.
I was just wooden derricks. They said it weird.
Well,
You built some of those and climbed some,
yeah, at least I cut down the trees.
or planted the trees. Yeah.
I started in the industry in 1976, climbing derricks offshore.
Oh, wow.
And back then they were just, in 76, they were looking for warm bodies. In fact, they had a sticker on the back of my hard hat that says, please do not use this worm for bait. You know? And so,
Now I understand. Okay.
and so obviously it was a different history back then. And I've been through so many ups and downs, but when you start talking about the quality of gas, Colby and I have always said this before, all MMBTUs are not created equal.
That's right.
What does that mean?
And what that means is that when you have to learn your C chart.
What is that?
C1 is methane, C2 is ethane, C3 is propane, C4 is butane, C4I is isobutane, and C5 is the pentanes. Now, the C's can go all around to like C120 something, I can't remember, but C5s all get loaded in because now you're really talking about condensate and more of a crude oil.
Okay.
So the first three usually follow, so gas, ethane, and propane usually follow the gas price. Butane and C5s follow the oil price. So when you hear a lot of people, they'll say it's a percentage of oil. And so you'll hear that. Now, when you see most people gather liquids, they're gathering a Y grade. So it's basically the C2 plus. So everything from C2 down. So they've separated the natural gas out and the others drop out. And the reason they do that is because it drops out at a relatively low temperature. So the way you separate gases like that is by temperature. And the colder it gets, the more you get. And I know I've actually worked in the helium world before, and you can get down to minus 412 degrees before you have pure helium.
Wow.
I mean, you measure that in Kelvin. That's how cold it gets. And so, otherwise, similar to how it is, in Oklahoma City in the winter. At least it feels that way.
And you want
So-
colder.
I thought Kelvin's like a zero. What is 0 Kelvin?
Kelvin's absolute zero, and I think it's 412.
Yeah, okay.
And don't quote me on that. I'm not a scientist. I just play one on TV.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about quality, it's all about, most of the time, ethane is 50-50 right now. When you say, Colby, whether or not it's worth more as a liquid or as a gas.
I'm trying to figure out which one I pay Energy Transfer to take.
It's probably ethane.
Yeah.
Ethane is on the MMBTU conversion from a liquid to gas. You can do that conversion on ethane prices, and you'll get to what the gas is trading. Methane.
And you actually have
is
to
trading
you have to
for.
pay them to take it.
Yes.
Wow. Ouch.
It depends on what the price is. And sometimes it's because it's had value in the past.
Yeah.
What's that?
Ethane.
Ethane.
Yeah, as a liquid.
Ethane has tremendous value today. Yeah, because natural gas prices are higher.
Right.
Methane prices are
Yeah.
higher.
So when you think about ethane, think about in the plastic world when you're making ethylene, when you're making stuff like that, they like to burn ethane to do that. And so you'll see some of that. And so when you start talking about the natural gas liquids, a lot of that goes into your petrochemicals. And so,
Which is then exported.
right. So the next one is
All of it.
All of it.
Is that because
To
we don't
make
manufacture
to
anything
make
here?
these cups.
We don't make anything
Bottle.
here.
Not
This
enough.
water bottle is made with propylene and a polymer that is bonded together and put into and made a little ball, and it's shipped in massive quantities to China.
Right.
They put those little balls into to a machine that heats it up and creates that mold for that.
And so that's
My
actually
goodness.
like a catalyst as opposed to being burned.
Right.
So it's more of a chemical process. Years ago, I worked for a chemical engineer, and the two things I learned about a chemical engineer is
Not very
that,
good marketers.
is that most of the time they don't have any personality at all. Second of all, don't ever ask them why, because they will explain in great detail.
I like it. That's what podcasts are for. Bring it on.
Right.
And so,
We're not getting a chemical engineer here.
but each one of those commodities, separate liquids commodities, has a different value based on what's going on in the petrochemical world.
So what's coming up out of the ground out of your wells? Like what's
Everything.
everything?
Yeah.
So everything, methane, that's what we talk about. Is
Mostly,
natural gas
yeah.
is methane, and then anything heavier than that, C2 plus, propanes plus. That's the NGLs that we're extracting, like Bill talked about, at processing plants across the United States, and then in oil and water, more water than we want. But
Yeah, Oklahoma. So we
Yeah.
definitely know how to drill water wells.
we definitely know how to drill water wells and try try to turn them into.
How much water do you? I mean, so you have 3,200 wells. How much of it's oil?
Yeah, so a third. We were fortunate to say a third. That's easy for me to remember.
A third oil, a third gas, and a third water.
NGLs. A third NGLs.
Yeah.
Can you guys explain real quick? Let's talk about the BOE and when you call it, what is condensate? What is condensate? Is condensate oil? What is condensate?
Yeah.
Condensate has a lot of deals, but usually what refiners will call condensate is anything that's above about 44 or 46 gravity. They call that condensate, even though they'll take it and they can utilize it. They'll call it condensate.
Wait, real quick though. The refiner, you're talking about the energy transfer.
No, I'm talking about.
Is this oil? Is condensate oil or is
I'm talking about
condensate
Phillips.
gas?
I'm talking about Valero. I'm talking about the guys who own the refinery.
Okay.
Okay.
But is
So
condensate gas or is it oil?
It is a liquid. Okay. I go back clear to the white old days back in Pampa over there where they were calling condensate oil so they could get 10-acre spacing versus 160-acre spacing. So there's a lot of stuff that goes around that. So I try to be careful. But typically what we would look at condensate would be a 60 gravity or plus when you say Colby that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some, and the reason is because it's got more gas, like the propanes and the butanes entrained in it, than what you would find in crude oil. Now, you'll find some of this stuff in just about every crude oil commodity, but very minuscule most of the time because they can't use it at a refinery. The refinery economics, that's just trash to them.
So condensate does not make gasoline.
Condensate are lighter molecules in a liquid phase.
Right.
That's what they are, and they appear like that water bottle. It's a lighter color, appears a color out of the ground like gasoline. So that's it. And I think it's important we don't just generalize the oil and condensate. Crude oil is virgin crude coming out of the ground.
What does that mean?
That's a low Reed vapor pressure product that doesn't flash off at a certain temperature, so you can cook it as much as you want.
Yeah, it's Science Experiment 21. Like throw a match into that oil right there, it's not going to light.
It's not going to light. Yeah, and condensate is a gas, so lighter molecules in a liquid phase.
What are you using it for? You're not using it to make gasoline, or you're using it to make diesel.
So condensate is oftentimes a refined product. I mean, it's just separation in the field. It's separation of liquid hydrocarbons in the pipe, oftentimes, or in the compressors. And and you just market it. And oftentimes, condensate is an inferior product to crude oil.
Crude oil's API can be from 40 to 60. So
Actually, Colby knows it could be from 9.
We do. Yeah, we worked in California long enough for sure that
Wow.
we've
That's really
marketed.
light, huh?
That was really heavy.
It's yeah.
Backwards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's heavier than water, and that seems weird. But
It's one of those deals where that's where you hear about steam lifts. They have to heat the crude oil to get it out of the water.
Underneath the
In
ground.
Canada, they do that in that tar
sands.
Yeah.
So they're heating up their product downhole.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
bringing it up. Nice.
steam injection.
That's really cool.
called.
With insulated pipe, by the way.
Yeah.
The 12 API gravity crude that we marketed in California
science.
has a pour point of 168 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have to heat it up to 168 degrees Fahrenheit to get it to
flow.
pour out of your
Wow.
red Solo cup. Yeah, and so in the pipeline.
That's why we want you to drill here. If you're watching this show, drill in Oklahoma. We have
right.
gas and oil.
Yeah,
One,
the pipelines operate at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. They're heating them up, the pipe.
So let's talk about what is the BOE number. It used to, they always use 1/7 or 1/6.
It used to be 6 to 1.
Yeah, 6-1. Thank you.
MCF.
And now it's split so much. So how does a company look at their BOE equivalents, or like how do you judge that?
Well, it's amazing how many people still use the 6 to 1.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You can't
It's
put a
not,
step on
yeah,
that.
it's not accurate at
By
all.
any means.
And so, but we've gotten a lot better at actually putting what the quality of the products are into those calculations. Because every quality product's going to have a different calculations of what that is. You agree with that, sir?
And I think a lot of companies have their preference on MCFE versus BOE, and it really doesn't matter
Yeah.
because it's just how you've reported it before. You have to keep reporting it that way.
Okay.
A lot of, and this is different for Presidio, but we really focus on making money as opposed to how many BOEs or MCFEs that we have, and that's got to be where we live as an industry, and it has to be about that. And if ESG is going to be the way, fine. But
Are you guys-
consumers are going to pay for ESG either way. That's
you
how
think
it's
so?
gonna
You think
happen.
as a consumer?
That's what's
yeah.
going to have to happen.
Yep.
Are you? What is your company doing with the ESG?
Yeah, so we have gone out there, and we're a private company, but we've gone out and said, we want to get a green rating from Fitch, if you will, or whoever, and we're going to say that we're going to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% by 2025, and that's a goal that we're going to put out there soon.
So is that just getting rid of flaring?
And a lot of that is changing out pneumatic valves,
Okay.
which is, I think, for all those folks who are listening to this show and podcast, they're going to want to really take a keen interest in pneumatic valves, low bleed, no bleed valves, because companies like Presidio, we have them on every single well, and that's going to be something that is going to happen. Whether it's
What does that mean?
global
What are
warming.
these pneumatic valves? What do you mean?
Yeah, so for Presidio, we have older wells, so 12 to 14 years on average, and what we do is we do like soap sticks,
Yeah.
plunger lift wells, and oftentimes to do soap sticks you have to close one valve to open another, and so there's that valve is
Why are you
on
doing
top
this?
is pneumatic to bleed off the pressure between one valve and the other to bleed off the gas. And you just turn the valve and turn your head like I just did.
true.
And so can you imagine how many wells? That's not unlike any other company. And you bleed off that pressure between the valves, you put in the soap stick, close the valve, open the other valve, and soap stick drops.
Yep.
And so that
You just
that's a way
release
of doing
hydrocarbons in
business.
the atmosphere,
That's it.
and it was okay back in the day because we didn't think
That's
anything.
normal operating
Yep.
procedure for producers.
But with
That's just
3,200
one example.
wells, that adds up.
And how many producing wells are we talking about across the United
We
States?
were trying. Hey, we still.
90% of them.
How many producing wells are in the United States right now? Do we know? How many are in Oklahoma?
How many are in Oklahoma?
We could not find. We have not found anybody that can tell us yet. We're still looking for that answer. How many wells are producing in Oklahoma?
Heck, you could
And
ask Presidio.
How many you're asking? Yeah, you guys have them all.
Well, no, yeah, Presidio's
3,200.
got to make up a huge percentage of the wells in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma and District 10 in the Texas Panhandle.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, they're not just Oklahoma.
What percentage, I don't know the best way to ask this, but you would actually, because Presidio's got to be one of 5 biggest gas producers in Oklahoma, one of 3 maybe.
If you put in the Western Anadarko Basin, it's number 2, and definitely in the top 7 in Oklahoma for sure. Yeah, and in the presence, for those who don't know, it's Elk City, north to Ringling, and west to Amarillo.
Yeah.
So if you don't get out of Central Oklahoma very often or go east, then you probably wouldn't find us.
Go west.
Yeah.
Are you in the
Go
midstream?
west and when it turns
Do you guys have your own midstream as well? Are you
This
partnered
is
with somebody?
one company that I've been with that doesn't on the E&P side. I mean, I work for midstream companies, Jax, Duke. Yeah, work for midstream companies, but this company has been focused on production.
Yeah,
PDP.
you're buying existing pipelines.
Right,
So
and a
they're
lot
not
of
installing
that
their
just
own.
hasn't come with the
Because you see
midstream
companies like
element.
Tellurian, they're trying to innovate. They're like, hey, we are going to create a plant to make our own LNG.
drilling their own wells.
We're going to drill our own wells. Well, they're going to drill.
Yeah.
Presidio's
I
going to
think
drill.
at some point.
Yeah, they have to. Everybody's going to be a company.
We're
is
going to
be-
participate or
Yeah.
we're going to drill.
Yeah,
There you
farm
go.
it out, man. I'd love drilling for you.
That's right. Yeah. We're taking inbound calls. I just don't know that we're calling anybody back at this point yet. And that's just because of the.
How does somebody invest in Presidio? They reach out to you and say, hey, we want to get involved. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, yeah, I think I think that we're interested in investors as much as they should
capital.
be, and that's the way to think about it. We should always be interested in having more people than not, believe in our business model, which I think we believe in. We brought people. The A team is together at Presidio. They're all partners. They have stake in the business, and we're doing what we thought at our old co's we should be doing anyway, which is focusing on making money.
What about you? Tell us about Energy Rogue. How do they get a hold of you, first of all? What's your website?
It's energyrogue.com.
Energyrogue.com.
And you can reach me at bill@energyrogue.com. I try to keep my email simple.
And why should I subscribe to your guys?
So what I tell people is that if your business is determined by the price of oil and gas, you need to know more about how that price is brought about. And what we do is teach you how to get there. We provide you, first of all, with a daily update of where everything is at the point, including the refinery inputs and outputs and stuff like that. But when you dig deeper into what we actually put on there for sale, that's our free stuff. And then the stuff that we actually sell actually gets you down to the charts that you see all your technical traders using. and the charts you always see your fundamental traders using, and we try to be the bridge between those two worlds.
It sounds like he's trying to steal your job.
He thinks that he can.
He can
we have
he can outsource his job.
We have
That's
multiple
cool.
bets at one time.
I like this.
I would never want Colby's job. He works too hard at it.
So, like Bill says to others, he taught me everything I know.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, when I found out you were going to be at the Oilfield Connections and on our podcast, he's like, "I taught that guy everything he knows."
All the bad stuff anyway.
Yeah, that's what I assumed already. Yeah.
That's right.
So how's Morgan Stanley been with all these activist investors that's happened to Shell now?
Doesn't Morgan Stanley set the price of oil anyway?
Yeah, right. Well, they do every month. They change their mind.
Yeah.
Based on their market.
I mean, they would never talk their book, but yeah.
They've been a fantastic partner. In fact, they're the catalyst to our success. They've been insightful and supportive of the things that we're interested in. And it's always important to find an investor and a sponsor that you have goals in mind, and that those goals are out on the table. Because a lot of times people get themselves into things that they just want the money, and they don't care about aligning themselves with what you're trying to achieve, and they just take the money, and the other in the bank or the sponsor or the equity partner says, we got them.
Flippers.
So recently, BHP came out and they said they're looking at selling their oil and gas assets, which profit about $2 billion a year, something crazy, right? And why they're doing it?
Buy them, Presidio.
In my theory, at least anyway, is because they're worried that if they hold on to them too long, there won't be a buyer. And why there won't be a buyer is because equity markets won't fund them to buy anyone else to buy it. So that's why I'm asking, where's the market going? So BHP is trying to get in front and sell their assets.
Yeah.
So, and it's because activist investors, which have shut down Shell, and said, no, you guys got to curtail your emissions quickly. And I think was it Exxon, or there was another one recently?
Exxon.
Yeah, that is also
Who would
activist
have thought that would
shareholders.
happen?
I know.
So do you guys think then that a bunch of so we talked about this many times? Like at first there was going to be a lot of grabbing up of big companies grabbing up all the land. Is it going to be now mom and pops then? Like there's just going to be more mom and pops?
There's still a cap on what investors want to lend to energy companies. There's still some bad blood over bankruptcies
Yeah,
the
a lot of
last
red
2 or
ink.
3 years, and I think the traditional folks have kind of stepped to the side and will stay on the sideline for a while. What the issue is, and for folks like BHP, is who's going to buy those assets. So they're getting pushed or pressured to divest of those assets. But what their challenge is taking those to the market, and who's going to write a $2 billion check? Is it going to be Presidio? Well, that's going to take a minute to find $2 billion to round up. And so what they're hesitant to do is to take that to the market, have a sale that draws out. If you're selling your home, it's been on the market a year, people think, what the hell's wrong with this asset? What the hell's wrong with this home? And the problem is that if you're out on the market too long, or you have a failed sale usually results in a 20% reduction in the asset. Well, there you go. You just threw away. So what's happening, and this is behind the scenes, and you guys know it, is that marketed processes are limited. Not a lot of people selling their assets, but they're definitely making calls to specific folks who they
Everything's for
think are
sale
the
anyway.
natural
We all know
buyers.
it's all for sale.
And they're saying, hey, we think you're the natural buyer. Here's what we want for this. Work with us on this, and we'll sell this asset to you. But it's one-on-one. It's not a marketed process, and that's where we find ourselves today, because there aren't a lot of companies, unless you're going to issue equity like Diversified Gas and Oil is doing all day long to buy new assets. Unless you're not issuing equity, there are going to be a lot of folks that are going to have a hard time writing checks for $400 or $500, $2 billion.
Didn't we talk about this? Was it Devon should probably buy all the Chevron assets? Same kind of.
They're going to have to issue equity to do it, though.
Yeah.
There's not any going to be.
But that's the only,
debt
like,
out there
in our
that
heads, we were
goes
talking about this the other day. That's kind of who, we thought would probably be the best to buy it.
Sure.
I mean, that's the closest, they overlap each other in so many ways right there.
Yeah, but in that case, I think that there's Devon talking directly to Chevron. They've probably come to Chevron and said, hey, if you think we're the natural buyer here, if you want to sell it, we're your guy.
Which would be great for Oklahoma.
And you hang back and you listen and it's just a one-on-one thing. No marketed process. Nobody knows that Chevron's out there selling these assets. And oh, by the way, on a Merger Monday, assets.
Speaking of which, on Monday, Dave Ramsey will be in here with Robert Hedler.
All right, that's a good crew.
That's good.
Oh yeah, there'll be some fireworks in here just
No
like
doubt
today.
about it. And that's going to result in a press release on Merger Monday.
Merger Monday.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just so curious though how the market if there's no buyer, like Camino's been stuck in this weird place, you don't want to IPO
Right.
because the market hates you. But there's not a bigger fish at this point. Camino's, I don't know
Camino's
what
kicking
they're
butt.
Yeah.
We love Camino. We like all the
Yep.
people over there.
Absolutely.
And they got rid of their Permian stuff there for a minute. I guess they're just going to
Didn't
focus
get
on
rid. They flipped it.
They flipped it. It was I know it's money. Hey, I'm very proud of those
Good
boys,
for
but
them.
it also made me like excited because I think they're just going to focus on drilling in Oklahoma. Makes sense.
There's a lot of, I've been unfortunate or fortunate, it doesn't matter how you look at it, but to be a part of 2 bankruptcies in a row, the biggest and the most controversial.
That was a
And
controversial one. For
Which
sure.
ones were those?
So Lynn Energy was probably the biggest, and Alta Mesa was the most
Oh
controversial.
gosh, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we all had so many friends over at Alta Mesa. I mean, that was a
Right.
huge part of all of our lives here in Oklahoma for a little while. I mean, they were just blowing through drilling wells.
Blowing through money. How about that? And
Oh, okay, but,
drilling uneconomic wells left and right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Mock picked them all up. I mean, Mock looked at the production on them and like, we would love this. Thank you for all this
Yeah,
production.
at that price point, just like
Yeah.
them buying
Right.
Templar had good assets.
Somebody told me
That's
at one
the
point,
price
like when
point.
Mock bought that asset for what they did, if they just sat on it for about a year and a half, it would have been paid for.
Templar.
Paid for.
Templar right now
Yeah.
is the same. No, Templar was a great pickup, and I watched that pretty closely. And all
And look
people digging on that.
at
That's
our
excellent.
friends at Citizens.
You
I
know,
mean,
a
they
big question-
they sell asset and then turn around and buy it back from them on pennies on the dollar.
So let's talk about
They're smart.
the Railroad Commission has a pretty robust program that you must plug 10% of your non-productive wells. Templar had a lot of non-productive wells.
Yeah.
How does that work? When does Oklahoma
So
start
I
doing
I hate
say,
plugging wells. It's terrible.
non-productive wells or non-commercial wells?
non-economical? Like shut in, and they have been for a long time, a tubing leak, but they don't produce
So
enough to.
the pushback you're seeing from the producers is that at $2, it's not economical. At $4, it is.
Yeah.
In some cases,
Yeah.
but I mean, and they're maybe getting close to breaking even. There's a lot to that.
So do you want regulatory then to step in and say, hey, you have to have a plan to do
Yes.
something with this?
Yes.
You love regulations.
No, I'm a fan of regulation.
I know. We talked
It
about
needs
this
to
all the
happen
time.
because without regulation, no one would do anything that benefited outside themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to do anything more than what they have to. Especially plugging a well, especially a deep
Plugging a well is
horizontal,
terrible. You
someone-
should never plug a
It's
well.
$75,000, or it could be so many costs associated. You're seeing this in West Texas, like
Right.
you got a leak in a well that
Go fix it. Make it economical.
Actually,
Like you said,
why, right?
we're
Because
not giving enough love to these wells.
We're not.
Well, sometimes they're just no longer productive. They got to be plugged, but no one
never
in
have to be
Oklahoma is forced to plug a well or do anything with it. So they
Because-
just sit there and then they become orphaned, right? We had Mike Cantrell on here.
Mike Cantrell
He
hates
kinda
plugging
tells us
wells.
that.
Yeah, he's plugging
He
wells.
does, but if you're not doing it, something has to be done with the well because it ends up just trading hands so many times and then gets lost, and we end up with orphan wells.
I think Mike Cantrell's version of that is
I love
that
Mike.
there's someone who can actually operate that well.
Somebody can operate it and make it.
But as we get more regulations, that will not be true, and we will plug those.
So
wells.
yeah,
Why can't that go to the home? Like, hey, you know what? The state's going to take over that well, and that's going to go to the homeless foundation. Whatever it
Yeah, we
is.
don't want the state taking it over.
Well, not that they're going to do a great job of fixing that well, but if it can be fixed, they should farm it out to Trace Management. And say, hey,
well,
go.
I would argue, that sometimes a well is just no longer it's no longer economical. You can look behind pipe, and there's just nothing there. You got a couple of $100,000 to spend to perf a different zone or do something different. It's not there, so you can leave it shut in. And I'm not opposed to shut in because Mike Control, he thinks later in life there may be something to do with that well.
Right.
The problem is what typically happens is they just keep shuffling those wells to someone else, and then sooner or later it ends up in an LLC. That no one really owns anymore,
And that's bankrupt.
Yeah, and then now the state has an orphan well.
Right.
And then it's leaking methane, and everybody,
Yeah, anything.
on the environmentalists all hate us.
Yeah.
There's not a good process on that.
There are 4 wells that are in the Oklahoma River that have casing stuck up above the water about 20 feet. I drive by in the I-35, I-40 interchange.
How do we get a hold of those? Let's do something with those and show everybody
those-
how great oil and gas is by taking those back over.
Those wells need to be plugged. The casing is bent over like this. I see those wells and I kind of do this because it's exactly how you described. They're orphan wells. They're just hanging out in the middle of the Oklahoma River too. They're
What about
just
like a
outside
big
of that.
Presidio sign above them?
So what
with
is
like
that?
with like a big torch?
Where is OREB in that?
OELB is a great
OELB.
organization. They
Yeah.
just maybe have
How
a
about
focus.
Petro but where
Yes.
are they?
Well, they got their hands full, and I don't think they have a budget. They're trying to figure it out. Something has to happen to these wells. So those wells are a prime example. Those ones sitting stuck up. Those, At some point, they were productive. But someone didn't
Eyesores
want
for
to plug
Oklahoma
them.
City.
They're eyesores for the city of Oklahoma City.
They should be eyesores for oil and gas.
They are, and that's the way we need to treat this, some of
Okay.
this stuff. And we need to come up with a bridge that doesn't just say it's either produce or plug. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
There are smarter people out there who deal with operations than me, but there's a bridge that, and Mike Cantrell is probably one of those guys to lead that initiative to be able to say, what can we do with these wells? It doesn't mean that we got to go spend $50,000 each time. Can we put some sort of monitoring on them? Where make sure they're not leaking, and let's go down the road here until there's possibly something we can come do with these things.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying, and this is what I do agree with, is that anytime you see a well like that, it costs everyone money, not just the people who own the well.
At that point, yeah.
Because that reputation for the industry is making sure that you can't go get capital. It's making sure that people are always going to be up against you.
Yeah, it's black eye.
It's not just a black eye, it's a financial black eye. And no one's ever translated that into money to anybody before.
That's right. Yeah, and no, and I'm a fan of regulation, because without regulation, everyone would have orphan wells everywhere. So, there is good reason for it, and it needs to be regulation with good means. A lot of times it's protectionism and regulation, but most of it, sometimes it is protectionism to protect an industry or a certain company.
And sometimes it's a gotcha regulation.
Yeah.
I'm just out trying to find and just, I got you.
Yeah, and that's what you're
Punish
seeing with
it.
all this ESG bullshit.
Regulation
Not
just
bullshit,
needs more taxes.
The environmental social governance is something I do care about, but it's this whole cancel culture, and that's what I call BS. It's going too far, right? We need to rein it back in, but
I think
that's what you're
ESG
seeing, and that's what you're seeing
bullcrap.
pushback across the world. Is everybody says, well, we're going to convert.
No, you're not.
And then says, okay, here's the cost for conversion. Well, maybe those guys aren't so bad after all. When you talk about electric vehicles, right now they're 2% of the total vehicles.
I just drove a
2%.
Tesla.
yeah,
They're
what do you think
super
it'll
cool.
be? Okay, let's talk about
It's a
electric
toy.
vehicles, Bill. And this year,
It's all a waste.
10%. Next
It's a
year,
waste
it'll
of
be
energy.
baloney. They are more efficient.
They are not more
It's
efficient.
bad. It's good for us. I don't know why you're
My
doing
good
that.
friend came to my house. She parked her car on Friday. By Sunday, it still wasn't charged back up for my bike.
Well, yeah, but that's about your.
What a joke of
You
a
were
car.
doing, no, you were doing 110. So they have different chargers that can do more and
Okay,
faster.
but
So
if I can't plug it into my house, is it really
you
an electric
can. You
car?
can plug it into your
Stupid.
dryer,
Yeah.
not like a 220 outlet instead of a
I'd
110.
close the drive a kid.
Well, you plug it into your dryer, you turn on the heat, and
Ridiculous.
put it closed in the car. It's very simple.
They are more efficient, but they're still burning natural gas, man.
Okay, well then I'm a fan. Then I'm a fan.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
So I would have rather
We're in
burn.
Oklahoma.
I would have rather burn that car in India as a fuel source than use that for much longer.
And I agree. I think there's a real place for electric vehicles.
Yeah, like this with my kids.
You,
like,
you can't you can't take them on any kind of long-term trip.
No. Well, you can now. I actually took one.
I like scooters. Those are fun. Those are great.
I'm on a race car team, right? And we
You know what I like
raced
to
in
do?
Louisiana.
Fort Worth, just driving around on a
And we
scooter.
took a Model 3
around
down
the
there.
speedway.
Well, you're going to have fun next week when DRW gets here, because I asked him about them.
Oh, DRW is
Because he and a friend took a trip in the winter from Denver to Omaha. Yeah, the people in the Tesla left their car halfway through because not only did the battery immediately went to half in the cold weather.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because...
It turned off the heater.
Yeah, well, a heater is a controlled short in a car. When you're using electricity, it's a controlled short. It uses an immense amount of energy. But I'll tell you, so
anyway, that'll be an interesting conversation. But I really do like electric vehicles because they have some, first of all, torque. I mean, I drive a Jeep. My thought process is, you take a Jeep with 4 electric motors and every wheel, yeah, that would be just pretty intense.
So I took this was almost 2 years ago now. We took a Model 3 from Oklahoma City to New Orleans, which is in a normal vehicle, and I drove an Escalade at that time. It would take 10 hours and roughly two tanks of gas, so $400 or so. We took the Tesla this year, or that year, and it took 14 hours, but the cost was only $45. But why it took 4 hours longer is the route you had to take.
Right.
To be able to charge.
To the chargers, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the route you had to take, plus sitting there for an hour at a time charging.
And usually if you're getting an hour charge, you're only going up to about 80%.
Yes, sir.
Is Presidio ever
You
going
get
to
up to
sponsor an
100%
electric
takes
car?
significant. That last 20% takes a lot more.
So you know what's crazy?
Gas all the
So
way.
right now, California is
If you were ever going to sponsor a car, what would it be? A Mustang?
Probably
hope not.
if Will Ulrich was here, he would probably say something like that. I think so. He probably has a particular car that he would want to sponsor.
A
But it wouldn't be
Mustang
electric
Rocky?
fueled. It wouldn't be electric fueled. Though.
I don't mind it. So
He's a pretty innovative.
What
guy,
about you?
though.
What about you? What's Rogue? If Rogue was going to sponsor a car, what would
Nissan Rogue.
I've all thought about that.
Dear God, I'll pray for you.
That's a copyright lawsuit. Probably.
It probably would be, unless they sponsored us. But no, I think when you're talking about a car, it always talk to me is about what kind of car you. I mean, when you talk about racing, there's so many different types of racing.
Yeah, of course.
Jeremiah races. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. What do you race, Jeremiah?
I race a 91 Nissan 300ZX, but I do endurance. It's 16-hour races. 16
Okay, so you do
hours.
a rally or just long distance?
No, it's on like a I hate to make the association, but it's most accurate. It'd be like watching an F1 race. So I'm making left and rights on a closed loop paved track.
So similar to like what Hallett's got up there.
I raced in Hallett in May, 14 and a half hours. Why was 14 and a half? Because the engine, we blew up another engine. It was supposed to go 16. That's crazy.
So
You need better condensate lubricants.
going with the engine road thing, I think we'd go after some off-road.
So no, but what I want to bring up is this is crazy. This whole thing with EV vehicles. So California is super embracing, right? What is it? 2035, no internal combustion can be sold there.
No new internal combustion.
Okay, but they're having brownouts now.
Yeah.
How can their grid keep up with it then?
By buying LNG from Oklahoma.
They're just importing it and they're letting someone else produce it in a different state and then.
Could you guys make your own LNG out of location?
You can make LNG on location, sure. Yeah, we've had an asset in the past where we made LNG up in Kansas too.
Yeah.
Where do you export the
That's
LNG
energy
from?
intensive though, right? To compress it that much or cool it that much to where it becomes a gas.
Really intense, but we're cooling it that way anyway to extract the helium.
Really? Where are they doing that? And how much helium is in gas typically?
Southwest Kansas is where the Hugoton Basin lies.
Right.
And at one point, Lynn, now Scout, owned, was it
12% of the total helium in the United States.
Really?
Wow. Where's
it come from
from?
now?
The Hugoton Basin.
Yeah, I know it. No, we look at federal bids, and one was to plug some old helium wells
Right.
Oh, yeah.
in the Hugoton Basin.
Yeah, we were selling for,
By the way, they have now announced that helium reserve is empty.
Wait, so you tell me we were efficient in a reservoir and actually extracted all the helium available?
Let's not get too fired up about that thing has been empty and full for 25
So
years.
it's geology that recycles
Matt,
that.
how do we start a fight between these two guys? These gas marketers. It seems like it's right here on the
There's
cusp.
always something like that. Trust us.
I told you that Colby and I not always agreed on everything.
No, that's great.
This whole thing's going to result in minimum 3 or 4 bets after this.
Okay, wait, let's take some bets right now.
Yeah.
Is hydrogen or helium going to be a prevailing energy source for powering something in the future?
Helium will not be. There's not enough. Hydrogen.
How hard is that to move, hydrogen? Let's talk about hydrogen.
I mean, what about the engines based on
I've only read a
water?
little bit on hydrogen,
Ridiculous.
but what I've read about hydrogen is about whether or not you're creating green hydrogen or blue hydrogen.
Okay.
Okay. Blue hydrogen is the cheapest, but it requires fossil fuels.
And how are you getting it? But because it's pretty hard to store, isn't it?
What they do is
quickly.
basically they just shock water and separates molecules.
Electrolysis.
Right.
They're using electrolysis, but
Right.
I mean, you mine it or drill for it. Or like there's hydrogen wells.
Well, there's hydrogen in the
it's
air.
storing
Most
it.
of the time they use it from water because that's the easiest to shock because it's down to H2O. So all you got to do is get the oxygen out. You don't have to deal with everything else. However, the green helium, the green hydrogen, is made using wind power and solar power. And so I think the last number I saw on blue hydrogen was like $1.68 per kilogram. Green hydrogen was like $6.58 per kilogram.
How does a kilogram equate, though? I don't know what to
it's
do
by
with that.
weight.
Yeah,
by weight.
what do I do with that 1
I
kilogram?
can't
Speaking of weight,
I
you might
don't have
have
that
to-
conversion.
I need that equivalent to.
You might have to wait. You
Something
might have to
that
wait on
works.
that answer because I'm going to wrap this up. Boys.
You're gonna wrap it up. I'm
Yeah.
just getting fired. Man, I've got
I
questions
know,
here.
but hey, guess what? This brings us.
bets and we're drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try to cut it off before I get
Yeah,
too
yeah,
deep
before you
into
get-
it.
We're gonna get way. Hey, look.
You-
Instead of this being 4 hours, why don't we just invite them back and make sure that they come in?
I don't know that we learned enough about, and because I want to know how the hedges work. I want to know about everything in
Yeah,
gas.
follow them
Let's get 5 minutes. Let's.
I think
How do we?
that's
How do
the
we?
next episode.
Let's do the hedging. Tell me how. Can you hedge?
He's never gonna let you go, and he got you in here.
It depends on how much you have, but yeah, you can hedge non-op. The biggest problem there, a lot of times your operator is hedging that non-op as well.
How does that work? So you can have Clearwater or some other group
Right.
do your marketing, but it's all going to the same meter. Like you could take it in. How does that work? If all my gas is going through Energy Transfer, but you're telling me I can somehow sell gas, Energy Transfer still has clean. How does this work? How does gas marketing work?
You want this hour or do you want me to do
I
this?
know. I don't want to come back, but it's like, I want to know this personally.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Everybody on LinkedIn, follow this episode and ask the questions underneath the episode. And I guarantee you, these two guys, you give me all your questions. I'll line them up with questions after the episode. They can write all their answers down on LinkedIn.
How long have we been going at it?
Hey guys, how long have we been going at this? Never enough. I'll tell you what, never enough.
So the answer to your question is gas marketers always seek to get the most value. And getting that value can create a lot of different ways of doing things of how you separate things out. So whether hedging really is price protection for a producer.
Is hedging good? Harold Hammond would say no. And a lot of people, do you make more?
Well, hedging's all about what your risk tolerance is.
Sure.
you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so-
especially
If there's a downturn for 2 or 3 years, and
Well, it'd be
yeah,
debt
yeah.
and no debt, right? So hell, him doesn't have debt, so it's pretty
So
easy for him.
I sold hedges that we had for $125 in a $33 world. That was a nice income.
Yeah, you were holding those.
But as I told the producer that I was working for at the time, understand, this is now trading, not hedging.
And also, it'll
What does
never
that
happen
mean?
again.
That means trading means that you're trying to make money on the flip. Hedging is saying, I've got a price I want to protect.
So,
Any
Matt's trying to
company
kick me off here.
hedging
We got to shut it down
should-
again.
So that was just a quick answer.
Bill, I guess you guys are gonna have to come back.
Yeah, you have to come back.
Colby,
This
when are
is
you coming
fast
back to
track.
Oklahoma City? We'll have both of you guys. I'm gonna save you the same
We'll
piece of
figure it
paper. We
out.
didn't answer any
Colby,
questions.
we're gonna
We'll come in, I'll come in, maybe together with Bill.
maybe not.
Definitely, so we can hear.
Depends how the conversation goes now.
And I'll come back later this year.
We might just have to take a road trip
Next
down to
year.
Presidio.
I think it's a good idea. We could probably host you. And I mean, it's a great.
I
great
love your
place.
logo.
Fort Worth
I
is
love
fantastic.
that beautiful logo. I just want to come down to Fort Worth and see it like painted on every wall. Like I want T-shirts with that logo on it.
I appreciate your guys'
Yeah,
investment.
it's so
in
great.
It
Oklahoma.
really is.
Yeah.
It's unique. Yeah.
I mean, I normally don't root for anybody from Texas, but Presidio, it's happening. I'm a fan
I
now.
appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
All right, so
That's great.
follow Colby on LinkedIn. Follow Bill. I don't know about Jeremiah,
Yeah,
but
no.
I love him to pieces. And thank you for writing all your questions and having this great
Yeah,
studio at Trace Management.
Yeah, right.
Guys, this is the Talking Energy Show. Reach us at talkingenergyshow.com. If you want to know more about these guys, we'll put some more information. Thank you guys.